Hello and welcome to Electripreneur Secrets, the Electrician podcast. We're here with you 5 days a week to help you master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. I'm your host, the pleasant peasant Newmeyer. I'm throwing that in today. The pleasant peasant Newmeyer with my co-host and partner, Joseph, the salesbot Lucani. Joseph, how you doing today?
Dude, that laugh was awesome. The pleasant peasant. Is that what we're
Yeah.
going? That okay. I'm sticking with that. That is freaking awesome.
There's a backstory.
Yeah, there is. Drop it,
Okay.
please.
Okay. One of the only plugs guy's going to get here, but nice fella, Joe O'Grady. We met there not so long ago, and he said, "You know, Clay, you're just so damn pleasant." And that just stuck with me. And of course, naturally, there's this stigma around Canadians being pleasant. Jacob knows. He's in the crew from Winnipeg here today. Joined us Facebook Live. If you're not in that Facebook group, you could be live with us, engaging as it's happening here. But us Canadians tend to have this stigma that we're so polite, so pleasant. So, Joe, I want to let you in on a little secret. I'm so pleasant. I'm so polite that I'll hold the door open for you and then thank you for walking through it.
I absolutely love this. This is a great start to any podcast.
Not bad, right? Not bad. So
I can dig
down
it.
there, though, New York wasn't bad. There was some pleasantries there. Nothing like the pleasant peasant over here, but
Ooh,
at your service. Here we go.
I love it. And you know what? Anytime you want to make your way back to the Empire State, we're happy to have you. It was a real pleasure having you, buddy.
You got it. All right. So big episode today. What are we talking about?
We are talking about some heavy shit. Today, we're going to get into something that I feel every single business owner and electrician has had to face, but it has been so taboo and stigmatized that we can't talk about it. But today we're going to talk about it. And that is when you get into a funk, how can you identify whether you're turning the right direction or whether you're getting worse with it? And then how can you get out of it? I know.
Broken glass right here. 7 years bad luck? I don't think so. Get out of a slump today. Start here, we named this thing. Okay. Why do slumps happen?
Slumps happen for a multitude of reasons, but ideally what I've come to identify as truth is that we go into slumps because we've identified with something that is not us. What I mean by that is this. Yeah. It means the concept that this feeling that you have is not you. It's just a feeling. Feelings are allowed to exist. You're allowed to have chemical imbalances. You're allowed to have a bad day. You're allowed to have an unsuccessful situation. And those things happen. But when you identify with the failure and not with the lesson learned from the failure, you end up drawing to yourself more of the negative. And negative only begets more negative. So we need to take our step out. You can tell I've been to a lot of therapy at this point, right?
but law of attraction, though, too. Here, I mean, this is some big stuff. Heavy hitting right off the bat here. So,
yeah. So the thing is what is a funk? What is a slump? It's just that period of time where someone hasn't been able to see the positive light or the lesson that they could be learning from the endeavor they're currently in.
I got to add to this because doesn't just even just saying, hey, I'm in a slump, assumes that there is an average. It assumes that there is a flat line somewhere and I'm below it right now. In reality, this whole thing's a roller coaster, isn't it? It's ups and downs, and that's what gives us reference, highs and lows. But every time we push that high, the slump line comes up a little more too, doesn't it? Our expectations of ourselves come up every time we reach that next level. So really, I think a lot of us, are chasing our tails a bit here in calling it a slump and just not living up to our expectations of ourselves in this moment. Is that fair to say?
God, yeah. Wow. You're right, because you made me pivot here for a moment because my original
pivot. James said in the group here, start with small gratitude to help change the mindset. And we are absolutely going to pivot to some solutions. Just picking this apart to make sure everyone understands, okay, what are we going through? Because I personally believe in seasons. I think when you push so hard, right? Think of this thing like an elastic band. We're going against the grain, so to speak. We're going
Hmm.
beyond what's comfortable. And being uncomfortable is like going against an elastic band. What's going to happen after a while?
It's going to snap back.
Got to snap back, at least a little. There is no RoboCop out here. It's not real. I'm not the Terminator either. I
Hmm.
just had a little slump myself. But I can tell you, sunny skies again, blue skies. Things are great this week. I'm on cloud
Hmm.
nine. Other than this freaking cold, man, I'd like to be done with it.
You know what? I was going to say, for someone who says that they have a cold, I mean, you're handling it very, very well. And your voice hasn't changed that much. If anything, it's a little deeper, a little more melodious. So, like, hey, it's working for the podcast. But I'm
I
happy
actually
to.
made it up. That's helping me with my slump. It's not even a real
Ah,
cold. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I
Good
actually haven't.
afternoon, Mark. Mark's in the group saying hello to us, guys. Again, if you're not in the Facebook group, you're missing out some big engagements, wins, challenges, value pieces in there. All right. So, how
I
have
haven't.
you experienced slumps in the past, and how have you begun to recover from them?
It tied into something I wanted to mention.
Sure.
And I feel like there are some people who need a visual. And I think this will really, really help. So, for
Awesome.
everyone who's listening, physically just hold one finger up, right? I want you to do a visual here. You can only bend your finger one way before it decides to break, right?
Yep.
It only goes in this direction. So sometimes it's a perspective change. Let's say that the way you move forward is the way you're naturally inclined to move. This is where you're looking at the problem. This is the problem. When you're inclined to look at only the problem, you easily bend to the problem, and it's hard to bend to the solution. But if you change your perspective, and this is the problem, now it becomes hard to be bogged down by the solution. And instead, it's easier to turn towards the things that are more successful.
I see. I like that. I like that. And if you're only listening, guys, what just happened is Joseph switched hands and
Mm-hmm.
pointed the other way. Use the other finger. Perspective change. It was a
Exactly.
great little model. Good visual. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.
So, how can we change our perspective if we're feeling the shits? Everything's going not our way, against us. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, negative begets more negative. Things
Mm-hmm.
tend to happen in threes, is another thing people will say and
Mm-hmm.
believe. Some of the superstitions that will allow
Mm-hmm.
more stuff to be perceived negatively. How do we begin to pivot from that mindset?
The first thing that helped me is acknowledging where you're at and where you've been. So I've been a person who suffered from depression my entire life. I've made multiple suicide attempts. I've had a lot of dark paths that I've walked. So it's hard to get out of it. So if you guys have walked similar paths, this message is for you. I learned that your survival rate, if you're listening to this right now, your survival rate is 100%. That means everything you think is going to make you stumble and fall has not killed you yet. Remember that. Like, really, just sit with that. Because when we think that these moments are forever, that we're going to be in this mindset forever, we're going to be in this place forever, we're going to be in this job forever, it's not. It's really, honest to God, not. You just need to take it day by day and know that if it hasn't killed you yet, it's not going to. So the first mentality is to say, I am not this feeling. This feeling is not me. These are thoughts, and thoughts aren't real. This thought is not going to break out of your head and kill you. But when you don't manage your thoughts, you'll wish you did. So, how do we get out of this? If your step one is to simply say, I am not my thoughts, is to recognize what thoughts are helpful and what thoughts are hurtful. Would that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I want to acknowledge, your shares as you've been recently come out with some of this stuff and letting
Mm,
people know and relate to that because,
mm,
hey, we all get down. It happens. And for some of
mm,
us at different levels, but the reality is really very simply the same,
mhm.
right?
Exactly.
Is that the shoe doesn't always fit. So this perspective change is really, I think, not only fair, but critical.
It is.
Critical.
It's also one of the moments where you'd have to say you have only two opportunities or two options when faced with a problem. You are either going to win and overcome, or you're going to learn how to overcome. If it's not going to kill you, that's the option you have. It's either I'm going to survive, am I going to survive or am I not? If you're choosing to survive, you either are going to win or you're going to learn. If you're not willing to learn, that is the only time failure wins. So, with all this in mind, what do we do from here? The thing we have to keep in mind is that you need to understand where you're trying to go. Imagine you put a blindfold on
Hmm.
and I tell you that you need to walk to the other side of the room. You might be able to do it, right? Depending on the size of the room. What if I put some obstacles in your way? Be a little harder to do. But the moment the blindfold comes off, you can step over things, move around, adjust. That's how you can treat mental health. Mental health is something that is part of you. It doesn't make you any different. It doesn't make you any worse. You're allowed to have the brain you have. You're allowed to have the emotions that you have. So accepting one, this is not wrong, is a great way of doing it. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And from that, I actually have an exercise. I'm going to begin to ravel out some tactical solutions here, if that's all right.
I'd love that.
There's an exercise I did, I started doing, and it's not perfect. I'm not batting 1,000 guys, but I can tell you this is something that we're all missing um, in our routine, and we're missing it a
Mhm.
lot. And what it is that we have this law of open cycles.
Mhm.
We don't give ourselves credit, but really we're not great at multitasking. Humans
Mhm.
aren't. You can only handle so much shit to do, and you can really only handle one thing right now, right? And that's what we got to focus on. And the law of open cycles says that the things left undone become vampires of our livelihood.
Mhm.
Well, what's livelihood? Isn't that what we're talking about? When you're in a slump, do you feel lively or do you feel
No,
depleted and at
you feel like
times
you're
even
unstretched.
defeated? Yeah, stretched thin, right?
Mhm.
Stuck in the mud, in the weeds, right? In the fire, so to speak. All these expressions that we
Mhm.
use for it. But ultimately, this law of open cycles then says, hey, we got to close some of this shit up because that's going to give us momentum,
Mhm.
right? Now, I
I
actually want to
agree.
relate this to a financial theory that I've heard in the past, and I never remember the guy's name, but he always said, listen, we don't start paying debts off by the interest rate. Okay, the intuitive mind says I should pay off the highest interest loans first, highest
Mhm.
interest credit first.
Yep.
You don't do that. I don't care what the interest rate is, you start with the smallest thing because it gives us momentum and it will
Mhm.
snowball. And that's the climb. So, this exercise I'm referencing, Dave Ramsey, thank you, James. Yes, absolutely. It's Dave
Awesome.
Ramsey. Um, this exercise that I started doing was hey, there was a fuck ton, a metric fuck ton, that's Canadian,
Mhm.
right? Of things that I was getting done in a month, in a week, in a day that I wasn't giving myself credit for.
Mhm.
I didn't give myself credit for cleaning the van at the end of the day. Isn't that important?
God, yeah. If your van
I,
isn't organized, you're screwed.
I didn't give myself credit for keeping the kitchen clean all week. I didn't give myself credit for that little extra renovation I did in the garage. I didn't give myself credit for fixing the dryer when it needed to be fixed. I didn't give myself credit for making time to mow the lawn because it's summer and the grass is growing. And
Mhm.
what I found was in a month, I ended up with about 58 things that I otherwise was ignoring. I was neglecting entirely to give myself credit for. They're all micro wins and they all deserved recognition.
Mhm.
And the problem with all star mentalities like ourselves is we're constantly pushing to the next thing, bigger,
Mhm.
bigger, which kind of assumes, hey, I'm going to hold everything in balance that I've already been doing and I'm going to do
Mhm.
more. But that's not how it works. That's not how we work. At some point, you delegate stuff or it doesn't
Mhm.
get done. And so the
Exactly.
law of open cycles, those open cycles grow. And next thing you know, you're in overwhelm, burnout,
Mhm.
feeling again depleted. Does that make sense? Is that relevant here?
It really does. And you inspired me to start thinking of other ways that we can actually help our clients and handle their emotions. Do you mind if I kind of jump into it?
Sure. Let's do it.
Yeah. So the thing that I would say based on what you're communicating, and I think you were really, really on point, is I'd like to talk about specific symptoms that people can experience and the things that they can do in real time to fix it. So, have you ever had that moment where you feel like that pit in the center of your chest where you feel like it's hard to breathe and it's heavy and you're like there's just I don't know what I'm going to do with you. You almost feel like you want to curl up or you want to like hold your if you don't hold your chest in place, it's going to burst out. Have you ever had a
Yeah.
feeling like that before?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, a lot of times that is actually stemming from anxiety because it's directly over the diaphragm. And when that contracts, it's restricting your breathing in a way. And it makes you feel like you want to double over and bend. Normally, what your brain is telling you is to say, stay put. I don't want to move. I got to stay here. But you can
Mm.
actually change your biological signals by flexing the muscles above the diaphragm in 3 to 5 second intervals. What you're doing is you're actually telling your body that the danger has passed and you can start to breathe again. So, what you can do is when you get those overwhelming feelings, bear down the center of your core, almost like if you imagine your abs right the top, right beneath your solar plex. Imagine flexing that for 3 to 5 seconds, 10 different times. If you do that, your body will start to recognize that the danger is past and your anxiety will go away.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. In addition, we need to breathe, right? Breathing is automatic. People don't even think about it.
Hmm.
But how many times do you go through a process where you get overwhelmed and it becomes hard to breathe, right?
Yeah.
Like that happens to a lot of different people.
You know what I realized, if I can jump in there, is
Please, by all
during
means.
different courses, during different meetings, during different
Hmm.
things, I started to pay
Hmm.
attention to what my core is doing. And I
Hmm.
realized that a lot of times when I'm learning or putting intention into something, my core is actually engaged and I'm withholding from the very breathing that you're talking about. It's a
Hmm.
crazy realization. I didn't notice it for so long, but like, wait, I'm not really breathing right now.
That's actually that was literally the next thing that I was going to get into. And I appreciate you pointing out because that shows a connection is being in place. How you breathe is how you think, and how you think is how you breathe. What that means is that if your breathing is quick and your breathing is shallow, your body will believe that you are in danger. And as a result, it will compound upon itself to where you end up in a panic attack. But even if you're in a place of anxiety and you can control and slow your breathing, your brain believes the danger has bypassed. And as a result, will reduce the chemicals of adrenaline that are increasing your anxiety.
Mm.
So when you're in these moments, I mean, for anyone who's ever had to go to a childbearing class, Lamaze breathing, we've all had to practice it. What's stopping us from using breathing techniques to control how we're feeling? If we can do that, we can change our thought. And when we change our thought, we're changing our current view of the reality we're in, because that's
Yeah.
all it is.
That
We literally live up here.
reminds me of a quote I just want to plug in there, that
Go for
if
it.
you can't control the mind, control the body,
Hmm.
which leads us into a huge action item here. How
Hmm.
important, and we've said this many times before, but how important is physical exercise and this breath work to that proper mindset and building on and getting out of this slump?
It's utterly essential. And the logic behind it is this: you are not your body, you're not even your thoughts. You are a brain piloting a meat and bone mech suit. And if for some reason that suit or that equipment is not in the best shape, you cannot perform to the best of your ability. That also means that we're all circuitry. All of us electricians, we understand how wires and conductors work. But if you don't treat the conductors the right way or you put too much ampacity through them, they'll burn. So, like as an example, something that comes to mind is as a former smoker, people would say, I'm stressed, I'm going outside for a cigarette, right?
Mm-hmm.
But believe it or not, what we're craving, though it may be the nicotine chemically, is the time to actually breathe because you're going to stand outside in silence. You're going to take 10 to 15-second inhales. You're going to have full body exhales. You're going to be conscious on an individual task rather than thinking of all the other things that plague you. We can do the same activity without the chemical. It's entirely doable. So what's stopping us from using these simple techniques to overcome
Yeah. Oh, well, essentially going outside, right? Just do it.
it?
Now,
Yeah.
let me throw something out there and see if you pick up what I'm laying down.
Sure.
Law of conservation of energy
Hmm.
ties in perfectly here. Do you remember what that one was?
Yeah. So so my logic in my understanding of it was if you spend energy, it's no different than a sales process where you have to know that only you or the customer is spending energy. And the more energy you spend, the less effective you'll be. So the more energy you can conserve, the safer you are.
I think this one in science actually came down to, and maybe I named it wrong, so forgive me if that's the case, but energy is neither created nor destroyed,
Yes.
only
Okay.
transferred. And if we
I would
apply that
agree.
here to what we're saying, then you also have to recognize that hanging around other negative people, being around other negative influences is absolutely doing something to you.
Hmm.
Being around other positive and growing people, like on the inside track with us in our coaching group, where we've got, all of our clients in that group chat, and they post their wins every day and everyone's feeding off it and looking for their next thing and how to leverage that in their business, that energy that comes through, because it's not created, right, or destroyed, it's transferred. But now also, doesn't that begin to explain why, if we can't control the mind, control the body? Because somewhere we have to just begin to use and build positive energy so that it can flow through us. Does that make
Hmm.
sense here? Does that
That's
apply?
perfect. That really freaking does. And it actually it reminds me of a song. I'm sure I've stitched it and mentioned it before, but I grew up listening to Frank Sinatra in the house. And the
Mm,
song Whistle a Happy Tune is the concept of I know I'm not okay right now, but I'm gonna fake it till I make it. I'm gonna whistle every time I'm upset. And when people see me in the street, they're gonna be like, wow, he must always be happy.
yep.
And the thought process is, you know what? If I can't control what I'm thinking, I'm going to control what I'm doing. So,
I
Clay, you
love
said
that.
it perfectly.
I love that. And it ties perfectly back into our apex attraction method, which we're not going to get into today. Do you know
Mhm.
what my song was? Always was for getting that pace up, putting a smile on my face. Johnny Cash, Get a Rhythm. I
Ooh,
can
a
hear
Man
it
in Black
now.
fan. All
And it's
right.
upbeat. And you know that it's when you've got the blues, but it's a happy, upbeat song. And you get in
Hmm.
a rhythm and you're getting out of it. You're getting out of that funk and you're moving forward. So much
Hmm.
so that even on projects or working in teams, I would always put that song first on the stereo to get everyone in a groove. Of course, can't do that in a homeowner's house necessarily. You can put it in your earbuds though for a moment.
Hmm.
You could do it as prep on the way to the site. Whatever you got to do. Hey, Mark just brought something up that's massive. And I know we talked about it pre show. We wanted to put this out there too. Dress, act, and look like a winner. How
Yes.
important is it to look good?
I mean, look good, feel good is the mentality. I mean, there are some times when you dress up and you're like, I'm looking at the mirror and you're like, God damn, I'm sharp today. You're going to be more likely to have a positive mentality as you go through your day.
Yeah,
Sometimes I've even heard things like the first thing you do is make your bed. It's like, what does that mean? It means you're going to start your day with the mentality of, I'm going to do something productive. Just saying, I'm going to get up. And when I get up, I'm going to start doing something. I don't know what that something is, but I'm going to start by making my bed.
yeah,
It works.
it's huge. It's huge, man. I even take it to the level of the dress, look good. I'm a fan of going and getting your hair cut every couple weeks. Sorry, Joe. I'm sorry. You're Bick in the head, man. I know there's a few
Yep.
Bickers in our audience and our fan base there. So if you got a Bick, it doesn't matter. That clean shave, right? Clean shave in your neck, making
Mhm.
sure that everything's cleaned up. That feels good. But also when I
Mhm.
wake up and I do that, also a fan of going over to my life partner and making sure that they know it too, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Giving that little bit of confidence out.
Mhm.
Give her a butt smack, gentlemen. Give it to her and let her have it. Let her know that's your ass. Was that too private for a podcast? I'm not sure. But
No.
in reflection, how do you feel? Don't your shoulders go up a little bit?
Mhm.
Doesn't your smile lift a bit? Doesn't your chin come up a little bit when you do this stuff, right? And
Mhm.
wouldn't that help you get out of
I
this
really would.
slump? All right.
And in addition, there's one last thing I'd like to stitch if we can.
Yeah, let's do
And
it.
it's one of the reasons why we developed the pre-arrival process. We literally tell you to keep a spare uniform, to make sure that you're well groomed, to check under your nails, to make sure if you're going to smoke cigarettes in the van, that you're doing so with strategy, and you know how to do so the right way. So literally, even if you can't mentally grasp yourself on how to get out of the funk, sometimes it's important to simply trust a process that you know is going to get there, whether you're willing or not.
Absolutely. I love that. And guys, if all else fails, listen to this episode because we had a couple of great laughs today. I want to give a special shout out to Joshua Asher in the group saying, great topic today, guys, but also it's his birthday. So he thanked us for the birthday wishes.
Love it.
And James actually said something in response to the hair comment. He
Mhm.
said, God only made a few perfect heads and the rest he put hair on them.
Oh,
Nice, right? Are you
okay.
going to borrow that one?
Yes, I most certainly am going to borrow that. I'm not going to say I'm bald anymore. I'm going to say I have a massively crafted dome.
I think I told you this before. One of my old bosses years ago, he was a bicker as well, loved to bick his
Mhm.
head. And one of the apprentices actually went to his door. We were in camp for a night or two, and he knocked on his door and said, "Hey, Shane, do you have any shampoo by chance I could borrow?" And then kind of looked up at his head and was like, "I'm sorry. Have a good night," and walked away. Awful. I don't know. Still brings me joy though. So,
It's
guys,
good though.
uh, hope this episode is helping you get out of that slump. What really were our big takeaways here? What would you say were the biggest action items that someone's got to take to get up out of this slump? I mean, mostly we focused on
Yep.
mindset, of course. There's a lot more
Mhm.
specifics when we come down to what are you actually working against? What's that obstacle that's in the way? But what
Yeah.
would you say from today's show is really the most helpful beginning here?
I definitely think we need another podcast on this because there's so much depth to it. But from today, what would we say the biggest takeaways are? Is I really believe that even at the minimum action, you don't identify with the problem, but you identify with yourself. What I mean by that is this: the problem is something that you tend on putting your focus on. And a lot of times we just get stuck on it, and we get stuck on it, we get stuck on it, we can't let it go. But when you recognize that you're not that problem, you are just a person who's experiencing an emotion, it kind of reduces the grip that it has on you. I feel like that's the very first step, because when you identify with the problem, you can't ever let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
No, I love
Would
that.
that be a fair first step?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely, man. And
Then,
like I told you before, and this is just an offshoot, but
mhm,
some of my best days are when my clothes are already prepared, it's clean cut the next morning. All I got to do is wake up, go to the shower. I've already got my earbuds there. I'm a podcast engager and listener myself, so I love getting that again, the law of conservation of energy. I love
mhm,
getting that little positive energy injection from someone
mhm,
else who's been there, who's already got their day started or already had it planned out,
mhm.
and then having that exercise for me is just so helpful. And sorry
You're-
to cut you off on the all-star efforts here. Go
Dude,
ahead, brother.
there is, first off, and I'm going to say it again and again and again. I'm the one who interrupts most often than not. You never have to apologize for interrupting me.
Pleasant peasant right here in the
There you
flesh.
go. It's all good. So I'd say the all-star action is a little bit harder because it requires you to understand that the solution may not be today, but to agree that this is not forever. There are some days when you feel, and I've been there. I mean, there've been some days where I couldn't have gotten out of bed. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to get through what I was getting through. But I know that it won't be forever, and that you will be able to look back at this moment and survive. You will survive what you're going through. This will not kill you. As long as you can keep pushing through it, you will overcome. So the first step is to not identify with the problem. The second step is to say, this will not kill me. I just need to make it through it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And guys, track your wins, as we mentioned as well. Something that just came to mind as you said that, such a powerful metaphor that I need to leave you guys with here.
Mhm.
And that is that the frustrated batter swings for the fences. Really think about that while you're out there working away. The frustrated batter swings for the fences. I'll let that sit with you guys. We're here with you 5 days a week to help you master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. Today, we discussed a topic which could get in the way of all three if you're out there frustrated. So definitely want to see you guys rise. Thank you so much for tuning in again. I'm Clay, the Pleasant Peasant Newmeyer, and this is my partner, Joseph, the Sales Bot Lucani. We'll see you guys again next time.
See you then.